Life is a series of commas, not periods. A quote from Matthew McConaughey. So think about commas as pauses that give us time to slow down, but not to come to a final end. That tiny little mark has so many uses. So let's delve into how and when to use it correctly. We've discussed in other lessons in this course, and certainly in the Grammar Fundamentals course, the main uses of the comma. In this lesson, for each rule, we'll first review, then consider possible exceptions, and finally, cautions. So the first review. Two complete sentences with a coordinating conjunction. A comma is placed before that coordinating conjunction. The meeting will start late, comma, but it will last 2 hours. Consider the same rule, except if those independent clauses are brief, the comma may be omitted. I ran and Matt drove. If in doubt, add the comma. But remember, the comma comes before the conjunction, not after it. The second review, use a comma to separate the elements in series, 3 or more things. We will attend the sessions on teamwork, on transparent communication, and on leadership styles. But consider, the experts don't always agree on the use of the serial comma or Oxford comma. If in doubt, use it, although understand that some will say it should be deleted. However, it is optional. We will attend the sessions on teamwork, comma, on transparent communication, and on leadership styles. Remember, as you consider the Oxford or serial comma, that last comma, using it or not, may actually result in confusion. How many items were on the buffet table in this sentence? 5. Adding the comma makes macaroni and cheese 2 different items when it was probably only 1 item. Third review. Use a comma to set off introductory phrases or clauses. Because he was trying to get the amendment passed, comma, he called all the team leaders. But consider, you may omit the comma after a brief introductory element if the meaning is still clear. While in the store, I bought 3 loaves of bread. But remember, omitting that comma may create confusion. Look at this sentence. All along certainly qualifies as a brief introductory element. But all along, comma, the production line employees have wanted updated equipment is not the same as all along the production line, comma, employees have wanted updated equipment. So the comma is placed after both introductory clauses, but the meaning is different in each one. Also, if the clause comes at the end, it generally should not be set off with a comma. He called all the team leaders because he was trying to get the amendment passed. However, that clause that comes at the end may be set off. If reading without it would be confusing. A fourth review, use a comma to set off parenthetical elements or appositives, those non-essential or non-restrictive words or clauses that can be removed without changing the sentence's meaning. This example has a non-essential element, Highway 33, comma, which was repaved last week, comma, has 4 rest stops. The fact that it was repaved has nothing to do with the fact that it has 4 rest stops. The appositive renames. Look at this example. Fred, comma, my boss for 10 years, comma, will retire next year. The fact that Fred has been your boss for 10 years can certainly be deleted without losing anything crucial in the sentence. Now let's change the word order of Fred in the boss sentence. My boss Fred will retire next year. We could argue that Fred is parenthetical, assuming the writer has 1 boss. But if the writer has more than 1 boss, then Fred should not be surrounded by commas. Also, short appositives generally need not be set off with commas. Another review. The comma is used to separate 2 or more elements in dates, addresses, and titles. The conference on May 12, 2015, was held in Santa Barbara, California. If the day is not included, then no commas are required. Our new branch office will open in May 2018. But do consider, when the state name is part of a possessive or compound structure, the second comma is not used. Santa Barbara, California's conference will last 3 days. Remember, the comma between a name and suffix is no longer considered necessary by most writers, as in George Brown Jr. or George Brown III. Both of those would be correct without commas. And no commas are used in international or military format. George Washington became president on 4 February 1789. A sixth review, the nouns of direct address. Look at this example. I will arrive, Paula, sometime in the afternoon. I'm writing to Paula. But consider that a comma should not be used if writing about Paula. I told Paula that I would arrive sometime in the afternoon. Remember, those direct address commas should not be confused with the appositive. A seventh rule is to use a comma to separate coordinate adjectives. A review: the report was well written, visually appealing, and mechanically correct. All three of those adjectives are equal and should be separated by commas. You can replace the comma with the word and it still makes sense. But consider that not all adjectives are equal. Look at these sentences. The short October meeting will be to plan the project. To say the short and October meeting doesn't make sense. Let's look at this example with two equal adjectives separated by the comma. However, each adjective is also compound, so should be hyphenated. My friend decided to buy all the dirt cheap, run-down houses on the block. The eighth review is to set off quoted elements. The news article quoted our CEO as saying, quote, within the next 5 years, we will be the premier healthcare facility, period, quote. If the quote comes in the middle, then two commas are necessary. Quote, within the next 5 years, quote, our CEO said, quote, we will be in the premier healthcare facility, period, quote. But if the word that is used, the quote becomes indirect and no commas are needed. Our CEO said that we will be the premier healthcare facility within the next 5 years. However, a colon is used to set off quoted information that is either formal or long, more than a sentence. Look at this example. Another rule, number 9 on our list, is to use a comma to set off contrasting elements, those beginning with which, but, and not. She was promoted for her work ethic, not for how long she'd worked for the company. The new equipment is necessary, but very confusing to use. Consider, though, that some writers will leave out the comma that sets off a contrasting phrase beginning with but. We were eager, but also anxious. Remember that even though the comma is used before but in both of these examples, be sure to recognize that but serves a different purpose in each. The new equipment is necessary, but very confusing to use. The new equipment is necessary, but it won't arrive until next month. The but in the second sentence is a coordinating conjunction between two independent clauses. The 10th review is that commas may be used with interjections or exclamations. Yes, no, well, oh, wow. Yes, I plan to update my programs tomorrow. However, when the interjection comes at the start of the sentence, it can be followed by an exclamation mark to show that the writer is excited or irritated. Interjections, although not typically used in most business writing, might be used in an informal email or text to a colleague. And finally, a catch-all rule. Use a comma to avoid confusion. Is a comma necessary in this sentence? If yes, where? Without a comma, for most the month has been difficult, the sentence makes no sense. With a comma, with a pause, the meaning becomes clear. For most, the month has been difficult. The rule that applies? Use a comma to avoid confusion. But never use a comma between a subject and a verb, even though they may be separated by several words, and a reading pause might have been necessary. Understanding the new policies and being able to implement them are both necessary for success. Even though you might pause after them, no commas should be used between them and are. One final comma note. Overuse may be the biggest misuse problem with commas. Just because the comma has so many uses, and we haven't discussed nearly all of them, some people get comma happy. Don't use a comma unless you know exactly why you are choosing to insert one.